The market at Linden Vale smelled of crushed apples, and beeswax the morning I saw a dead woman reach for a jar of honey. I had come down out of the high country for salt and iron, nothing more. 21 summers I had ruled the Stonereach pack from Highfell, and in all that time I had not once come down for anything I could not have sent a runner to fetch. But the runners had begun to look at me with a careful pity that I could no longer stand in my own hall. So I came myself, cloaked and quiet, an old king playing at being an ordinary traveler among the valley folk who did not know my face. I was counting coins into a salt merchant's palm when I heard a woman laugh 2 stalls down, and the sound went through me like the point of a knife going in slow. I knew that laugh. I had heard it 1,000 times across a fire in a doorway against my shoulder in the dark. I had heard it stop once forever, with my hands pressed to a wound I could not close, and the boundary stones burning cold blew above us both. I had carried the silence where that laugh used to be for 21 years, the way a man carries a stone he cannot set down because setting it down would mean it was over. I turned. I did not mean to. My body turned before my mind gave it leave, the way it had turned toward her the very first time, a lifetime ago, when I was young and whole and did not yet know what it would cost to love her. She stood at a honey stall with the sun full on her face. Son of a... It was son of a's face, not a face like hers. Same grave line of the brow that softened when she was amused. The same wide-set eyes the color of river shallows over stone. The same small crease at the left corner of the mouth that came before the smile, a fraction of a heartbeat before, so that you always knew the smile was coming, and it was the sweetest anticipation a man could be given. She was reaching across her own stall to hand a stoppered jar to a farmwife, laughing at something the woman had said, and the sun lit the fine dark hairs at her temple gold. I forgot to breathe. I forgot the salt merchant, the coins, the years. The market noise went far away and thin, as though I had gone under water, and there was only the impossible living woman handing honey across a plank table in the ordinary morning. Then the farmwife said, "Bless you, Alys," and took her jar and went, and the name landed on me like cold water. Alys, not son of a, Alys. She was younger than my son of a had been at the end, younger by years. Son of a had died a woman grown, my mate, my Luna, and this one at the stall could not have seen more than 21 summers in her life. She wore a plain apron over a plain green dress, and her hands were a beekeeper's hands, careful and unafraid. And when she turned to set out more jars, she did it with the unhurried certainty of someone who had lived in this valley her whole life and expected to die in it, content. She did not know me. I saw that in the half-second her gaze passed across me and moved on. It passed across me the way a stranger's gaze passes across another stranger, a flick, an idle measuring gone. No recognition, no pull, nothing. I stood in the middle of the market with my heart trying to climb out of my chest, and I made myself do the hardest thing I have ever done, which was nothing at all. Because I was an old king who had spent 21 years learning grief, and grief teaches you, if it teaches you anything, that the dead do not come back, and that a man who sees his dead in a stranger's face is a man half a step from madness. I had seen her before, you understand. In the years just after, I had seen her everywhere in the set of a serving girl's shoulders, in a laugh across a hall, in 100 women who turned out, when I came close, to be only themselves. My wolf had lunged at everyone, and everyone had left me emptier than before. I had learned. I had made myself learn. So I did not stride to the stall. I did not seize her hands and demand to know how, or why, or whether the moon had a mercy in it after all. I did not do the thing that every year of my longing screamed at me to do. I stood and I breathed, and I watched a stranger named Alys sell honey in the sun, and I told myself, it is only a face. The world has only so many faces. It is a cruelty and a coincidence and nothing more, and you will go home and you will grieve as you have grieved, and you will not frighten this valley girl with the terrible want in an old man's eyes. I turned to go, and as I turned, she reached up to hang a second string of dried linden flowers along the top of her stall, stretching, her sleeve falling back from her wrist, and I saw it. A mark, pale old, the silver white of a scar long healed, low on the inside of her wrist where the pulse beats. A curved line like the young moon, and rising from it a slender fork like a branch, or an antler, or the 2 roads of a river meeting. The boundary mark. The mark the moon lays only on those born to keep the veil between the living wood and the country of the dead. The mark I had traced with my thumb 10,000 times on another woman's wrist, in another life by firelight, while she slept. The mark son of a had carried, the mark that had burned blue the night she died. I did not go home that day. I took a room at the Valley Inn instead, a low place that smelled of wood smoke and cider, and I lay awake the whole night with my hands over my face, and my wolf paced the inside of me and would not lie down. He had scented her. Under the honey and the crushed apples and the wood smoke of the market he had found, faint and unmistakable, the scent that was hers alone, the one scent in all the world I would have known blind, deaf, 100 years dead. It was thinned by the years and by whatever strange road her soul had walked to come here, but it was hers. I did not sleep. I lay in the dark and I made myself think it through the way a king thinks, cold and careful, because I did not trust the wild hope roaring in me, and I had learned to trust it least of all. A face could be coincidence. A scent could not. A scent and a face and the boundary mark, all three, on a girl 21 years old, born, then, the very year my Luna died, could not be coincidence in any world I understood. Toward dawn, I let myself think the word I had been keeping behind my teeth all night. Reborn. The old moon priests spoke of it sometimes in the deep of winter when the veil ran thin, that a soul bound tightly enough to this world, or to a living person in it, might not go all the way through. That the moon, which gives the fated bond, does not always take it back cleanly. That a love strong enough or a debt owed deeply enough could draw a soul back around again, into a new life, a new name, a new face that was somehow the old face, the moon's way of returning what it had been forced to take. I had never believed it. I had thought it a story told to comfort the grieving, and I had refused its comfort because false comfort is only grief with a lie sewn onto it. I lay in the gray dawn, and I did not know what I believed anymore. I knew only that a girl named Alys, who had never heard my name, carried my dead wife's face and scent, and the moon's boundary mark, and that if I let myself hope this and was wrong, it would finish what 21 years had not quite managed to finish in me. So I made myself a promise, there in the inn, as the light came up gray and then gold over the orchards. I would not touch her, I would not tell her. Whatever she was, a miracle or a cruelty of chance, she was a living woman with a life of her own, a valley of her own, a name of her own that she had chosen or been given and answered to gladly. She was not a thing that had been returned to me. She was not son of a come back to be my Luna again, to step into a dead woman's place still warm from a dead woman's grief. If there was any mercy in this at all, it did not give me the right to reach into a stranger's life and unmake her with the weight of who she used to be. I would go carefully, I would learn. And if I was wrong, if she was only a valley girl with an unlucky face, I would leave her in peace and carry my stone home and never come down to Linden Vale again. That was the promise. I meant to keep it. I will tell you now, before I tell you anything else, that I broke it, but not in the way you fear and not in the way I feared. I broke it the way a river breaks its banks, slowly and then all at once, and only because it could not help going where it was always bound to go. I stayed in the valley. I told the innkeeper I was a woodsman between contracts, which was true enough that it did not feel like a lie, and I paid for the room by the week, and I made myself part of the small, ordinary life of Linden Vale the way I had never in my life been part of anything ordinary. I split wood for the inn. I mended a fence for the salt merchant. I let the valley folk grow used to the quiet gray traveler until they stopped seeing me, which is the only way to truly see anything. And I bought honey. I did not go to her stall the first day, or the second. I bought from the old man 2 rows over first, and I let her see me buying from him, so that when I came at last to her planked table, I was not a stranger who had singled her out, but a valley regular working his slow way down the market. The first time I stood before her, close enough to hear her breathe, my wolf went so still and so total inside me that for a moment I thought my heart had stopped. It was not the lunge of the false son of us of years ago. It was recognition, deep and quiet and certain, the way you recognize your own doorway in the dark by feel. Home, said the stillness in me. Home, home. I had to grip the edge of her table to keep my hands where they belonged. Honey, I said when I could speak. My voice came out rougher than I meant. A whole jar or the small? She asked, and up close her eyes were exactly the river-shallow color, and the crease came at the left corner of her mouth before the small, polite smile, and I thought I might come apart on the spot like a man standing too near a fire. The whole, I said. She wrapped it in a twist of cloth and named the price, and I paid it, and our fingers did not touch, because I made very sure they did not. And as she handed me the jar, the sleeve fell back from her wrist, and the pale moon and branch mark caught the light, and I saw her glance down at it and then up at me quickly with a small flicker of something crossing her face, not recognition. Something below recognition. A puzzlement, as though a word she knew had come to the tip of her tongue and would not be spoken. She rubbed her wrist absently with her thumb, the way you rub a scar that has begun, for no reason, to warm. "You've a mark," I said, because I am a fool, and 21 years of longing had made me a worse fool than nature managed on her own. "Born with it," she said, easy, unbothered. "My mother said the midwife thought it ill luck at first, till she saw it was only a birthmark. It comes over warm sometimes." She frowned faintly at it, then shook it off and smiled again. "Mostly it minds its own business." "It's warm now," I said. It was not a question. She looked at me then, really looked for the first time, and I made myself gentle, made myself only the gray woodsman who bought honey, gave her nothing to fear in my face, though the whole of me was one long, silent howl. And after a moment she said, slowly, "How would you know that?" "A guess," I said. "You keep touching it." She laughed, and it was Sonova's laugh, and it undid me quietly where I stood, and she said, "You're a strange one, honeyman," and I said, "So I've been told." And I took my jar and I walked away before I could ruin everything, and I did not let myself look back until I was clear of the market, and when I did she was watching me go, rubbing her wrist, the small crease at the corner of her mouth. I ate that jar of honey over 3 nights at the inn, a spoon at a time in the dark like a sacrament. I know how that sounds. I was an old king reduced to a beggar of small mercies, and I did not care. So it went through the turning of that warm season. I came to the market twice a week. I bought honey I did not need and gave it away to the inn's children so that I could keep buying it. And slowly, the way you tame a wild thing not by chasing it, but by sitting very still and letting it grow curious, Alys began to talk to me. She told me about her bees. She loved them the way I had once heard her in another life, loved the pack. Fiercely, particularly, by name, though bees have no names but the ones she gave them. She told me about the valley, about the linden bloom that turned the whole vale to gold and drowsy song for 2 weeks each year, about the winters, and the way the orchards looked under snow. She told me she had never left Linden Vale in her life, and never wanted to, that her mother was dead these 6 years and her father before that she lived alone in a cottage at the wood's edge with her hives, and did not mind the solitude because she had never known another kind of life. And with every word, the ache in me deepened and changed, because I understood the thing I had told myself in the inn and had only half believed until now. This was not Sonova wearing a stranger's clothes. This was a whole other woman with her own mother, her own griefs, her own small, brave, contented life built with her own hands out of a valley that had nothing to do with me or my pack or the boundary stones or the terrible night that had ended the first life. Whatever the moon had done, it had not sent me my wife back. It had made a new person and given her the old face by some mercy or accident, and let her grow up free of all of it, free of me. And I found, to my own great surprise, that I did not want to take that from her. I had come down the mountain a grieving king wanting one thing. My dead returned. And somewhere in those warm weeks of honey and talk, I stopped wanting the dead at all. I began, without meaning to want Alys. Alys of the bees and the linden bloom, who had never been my Luna, who owed me nothing, who laughed at me and called me honeyman and had built a good life without me and did not need rescuing from anything. That, I think, was when the grief finally set down, not because she was Sonova returned. Because she was not, and I could love a living woman more than I could go on tending a dead one. I might have gone on that way a long time, a patient gray ghost at the edge of her market, never telling her, never claiming her, content only to be near. I had half decided I would. I had no right to more, and I had learned to want less than I deserved. But the pack found me. I should have known they would. A king cannot vanish for a season into a low valley and leave no ripple. It was Hesta who came, Mother Hesta, our den mother, who had held the pack's grief in her 2 hands for 21 years alongside my own, who had loved Sonova as her own daughter and had wept longer over her grave than anyone but me. She came to the inn one evening on a valley pony far too small for her, an old woman gone gray and iron with grief, and she found me splitting wood in the yard, and she did not even greet me. She looked at my face, I do not know what was in it, and her eyes filled, and she said, "It's true, then. The runner said you'd gone soft in the head over a valley girl with her face, and I came to bring you home, and it's true. You've the look you had that first year. God help us, Torin, you've the look." "Go home, Hesta," I said. "There's nothing here." "You're a poor liar for a king," she said, and she got down off her ridiculous pony, and nothing I said would move her. She meant to see the girl. She had loved son of a too much not to. I could not stop her without telling the whole valley who I was, and so I did the thing I had sworn not to do. I let her come to the market. It went as badly as anything I have known. Alys was at her stall in the gold morning, and Hesta walked up to it slow, staring, her old face working, and Alys looked up with her ready polite smile, and Hesta made a sound I had heard her make only once before in my life at a graveside, and she said in a broken whisper that carried across the whole market, "Son of a, oh my girl, son of a, you've come back to us." And she reached across the honey and took Alys' face in both her old hands. Alys went white. She pulled back so hard she knocked a row of jars off the plank and they broke on the stones, and honey ran gold and slow between the cobbles, and she stood there shaking with her hands up between herself and this weeping stranger, and she said, in a voice with no give in it at all, "That is not my name." The whole market had stopped to watch. Hesta stood with her empty hands still raised, weeping, saying the name again and again, and Alys backed away from her own stall into the crowd, and her eyes found me across the square, the gray honeyman, the strange one. And I saw the moment she understood that I was somehow part of this, that I had known, that I had been sitting quiet in her market for a season with a secret in my mouth. The look she gave me, then I will carry to my own grave. It was not fear. It was worse than fear. It was betrayal, the clean, deep betrayal of someone who had let a stranger become almost a friend, and found the friend had been a liar all along. She turned and she ran, leaving her broken jars and her weeping stranger and her honey running gold in the cracks of the square. And I let her go, because there was nothing I could have said in front of all those people that would not have made it worse. I took Hesta by the arm, gently. She was an old woman and half out of her mind with grief and hope, and I walked her out of the market, and when we were clear of it, I turned her to face me, and I said the truest and hardest thing I had said in 21 years. She is not son of a. Her face is son of a's. Her name is Alys. She has a mother who is dead and a father who is dead and a valley she has never left, and she is 21 years old, and she does not know you, and she does not know me, and whatever the moon has done, she is her own woman, Hesta. Not our girl come back, a new girl. And you have just stood in a market and called her by a dead woman's name and torn her life half open in front of everyone she knows, because you loved son of a too much to see the living person standing in front of you. Hesta wept. Then she's nothing to us, she said bitterly, and the bitterness was only grief turned inside out. A stranger with a stolen face, you'd have us leave her be. I'd have us do her no harm, I said, which we have already failed at. Go home, Hesta. Take the pack's grief home with you and let it lie down at last. She is not the answer to it. She was never going to be. I said it to Hesta. I think I was saying it to myself one last time to be sure I still meant it. And I found that I did, and also that I could not now simply walk away and leave Alys to think a stranger had crept into her market to gawk at her dead woman's face and lie about it for a season. She deserved the truth from someone, and better it come from me, plainly, asking nothing, than that she spend the rest of her life haunted by a market full of weeping strangers and never know why. So the next morning I did not go to the market. I walked out along the wood's edge to the cottage with the hives, and I stood at the gate of a woman who had every reason to hate me, and I called her name, her own name, the only name I had any right to call her, and I waited to be turned away. She came to the door with a hive tool in her hand held like a knife, which told me she had spent the night frightened, and that steadied me somehow, because a frightened woman who arms herself and comes to the door is a brave one, and son of a had been brave, and it was good to see the courage had come back around with the face. "Get off my land," she said. "I will," I said. "In a moment. I've come to tell you the truth, and then I'll go and you'll never see me again if that's your wish. You've earned that much. You've earned better, but that's what I've got to give." She stood in the doorway with the tool up and her jaw set, and she did not tell me to go on, but she did not go inside either, and I took that for leave. I told her. I did not soften it, and I did not dress it up. I told her I was Torin, alpha of the Stonereach pack, that ruled the high country above her valley from the hold at Highfell, near the old boundary stones. I told her that 21 years ago I had a mate, my Luna, a woman named Sonova, who bore on her wrist the moon's mark for keeping the veil between the living world and the country of the dead. The same mark she, Alys, had been born with and been told was only a birthmark. I told her the boundary had torn open one autumn night. the way it does perhaps once in 100 years, and that things came through from the other side that should not, and that the only one who could close it was the one the moon had marked, and that son of a had gone to the stones and closed it with her own life and died in my arms while the mark on her wrist burned blue. She was carrying no child, I said, because I saw the question rising and I would not let her wonder it. You are not her daughter. Her line ended with her. You were born by the Valley Register the same year she died. You have her face and her scent and her mark, and there is an old belief among the moon priests that a soul bound tightly enough is not always taken cleanly, but drawn back around into a new life. I did not believe it. I am an old man and I have spent 20 years refusing every false comfort grief ever offered me. I do not know what you are, but I know that you are not son of a. Son of a is dead. You are Alys, and you have your own mother's grave and your own bees and your own life, and I have no right to any of it, and I did not come here to take it. She had lowered the tool while I spoke, without seeming to know she'd done it. Then why did you come at all, she said. Why sit in my market half a season and say nothing? And here I told her the last true thing, though it cost me. Because I saw your face, and I thought, for a mad morning, that the dead had come back. And then I bought your honey and heard you talk about your bees, and I understood you were not the dead come back, but someone new, someone whole, someone I had no claim on, and I found I liked you. Not her, you. And I am a lonely old king who has not liked anything in 21 years, and I was not strong enough to stop coming to the market. That is the whole of it. There is no grand design in me. I only did not want to stop being near you, and I told myself I could do it without ever troubling your life. And I was wrong, and Hesta paid the cost of my wrongness into your hands, and I am sorrier for that than I have words to say. She was quiet a long time. The bees hummed in the linden behind her. Somewhere off in the wood a wolf that was one of mine. They had followed me down, of course they had. They always knew where I was, gave one low call and fell silent, and I saw her head turn a little toward the sound, and I saw the mark at her wrist, and I saw her rub it with her thumb. It's warm, she said very low. It's been warm since you came to the gate. It was warm at the market when you bought the honey. It's warm now. She looked up at me, and there was no anger left in her face, only a kind of frightened wonder that was so exactly son of us that I had to look away. What does that mean? I don't know, I said, and it was true. In her it warmed near the boundary, and near me. Near you, she repeated. I'll go now, I said, because I had said what I came to say, and to stay longer was to press, and I would not press. You've my word you'll not be troubled again, not by Hesta, not by the pack, not by me. Live your life, Alys, it's a good one, I'm glad of it, truly. And I meant it, and I turned to go. Wait, she said. I stopped. The other night, she said slowly, and her hand had come up to press flat against the mark. After the market, I couldn't sleep. And there was a thing in my head, a place I've never been. Stones, tall stones, blue in the dark and cold, so cold, and someone holding my hands, and a voice. She stopped. She was shaking a little. I thought it was a dream born of a bad day, but it was so clear, it was clearer than a dream. There was frost on the stones, and I could smell it, cold stone and frost, and the man holding my hand said, her voice broke off. She pressed her lips together. Then she said it very quietly, and the sound of the words in her voice in that valley morning near broke me where I stood. He said, wherever you go, I'll be here. When you come back, I'll be here. The morning went very still. I had said those words. On the boundary night at the stones, with her life running out through my hands and no way in this world or the next to keep it in her, I had said those words over and over, a promise and a prayer, the only thing I had left to give her while she died. Wherever you go, I'll be here. When you come back, I'll be here. I had said it as a thing you say to the dying to give them a soft dark to walk into. I had not known, I could not have known, that anyone was listening on the other side of it, that it might be a promise the moon would hold me to. I do not remember crossing the yard. I only know that I was on my knees in the grass in front of her, an old king kneeling in a beekeeper's dooryard with the hives humming around us both, and I did not touch her. I kept my hands open and empty on my knees, but I looked up at her and I said, yes, I said that, to you, to her, on the night she died. I have never told a living soul those words, you could not know them. There is no way in the waking world you could know them. She had begun to cry, not hard, only the slow, helpless overflow of someone whose whole understanding of herself has come loose. Then what am I? She whispered. If I'm not her and I'm not, am I mad? Am I hers? Am I nobody? You're Alys, I said. You keep bees, your mother's grave is in the valley yard, that's all true and none of it is less true for the rest. But some part of what you are once stood at those stones and heard me make that promise, and the moon, I had to stop. I had never believed it, and now I could not disbelieve it, and the turn was too great to speak of steadily. The moon kept it for me. It brought some part of you back around, not to be her, to be you. But near enough that a promise reached across. She sat down slowly on her own doorstep, as if her legs had stopped holding her, and she looked at me kneeling in her grass. And for a long while neither of us said anything, and the bees worked the linden, and the sun came up over the orchard, gold and ordinary and impossible. "I don't know you," she said at last, and there was no cruelty in it, only truth. "Do you understand? I have your dead wife's face, and I have one dream that turns out to be real, and that is a terrible and wonderful thing, but it is not the same as knowing you. You loved her, not me. You've never met me. You bought my honey." "I know," I said. "You're right. You owe the dead nothing, and me less than nothing, and I'll not have you step into a grief you didn't make, and a place still warm from a woman you never were. I said I'd go, and I'll go." "I didn't say go," she said, and she wiped her face with the back of her wrist over the mark, and she almost laughed, a wet, unsteady sound. "God, you're the strangest man. I said I don't know you. Those aren't the same. You could—" She stopped, colored, plunged on with the plain courage that was so wholly hers and also so exactly the old bravery. "You could stop pretending to be a woodsman and just be whoever you are. Around the valley, around me. And I'll decide for myself what I think of you." Not what she thought, what I think. That's the only way I'll have any of this at all. "Yes," I said. That's the only way I want it." And so a thing began that I had never dared imagine on the long gray mountain of my grief. A courting, slow, plain, honest, with nothing owed on either side. I did not court her as a Luna returned. I courted her as Alys, the way any man courts a woman he has come to admire and does not deserve, badly, hopefully, one honest hour at a time. I mended her hives. She fed me at her table and laughed at how little a king knew of bees. I told her true things about my life, and she told me true things about hers, and we did not once speak of Sunniva, because Sunniva was dead and this was a living thing, and I had at last, God help me, learned the difference. I would have been content to court her the rest of my days. But the boundary had other reckonings, and it does not wait on the patience of old men. It came on toward autumn the way it had come before, 21 years gone. First the small signs. The wolves grew restless and would not den. The birds left the high wood early. A cold came down off the boundary that had nothing of honest winter in it. I knew the signs. I had lived through them once, and they were burned into me. The veil was thinning. Somewhere along the old stones, the seal that Sunniva had died to set was fraying with age, and the country of the dead was pressing against the country of the living, thin as a held breath, waiting for a gap. I did not tell Alys at first. I told myself she had no part in it, that it was pack business and boundary business and none of hers, that she was a beekeeper in a safe, low valley, and the veil was a high, cold thing far above her. I told myself I would deal with it as a king deals with it, with the moon priest and the old rites, and keep her clear of all of it, keep her safe, keep her living, because if there was one thing in the world I knew for certain it was that I could not watch that face die at those stones a second time. But the mark on her wrist knew. It began to wake her at night. She told me we had come far enough by then that she would come find me in the gray mornings to tell me what the dark had brought, that the mark burned now, not warm but hot, and that the dream of the stones came every night, and that in the dream she was not only hearing my promise anymore. In the dream her hands were on the cold stone, and she was doing something with them, some work she did not understand awake, some steadying, some holding, and that she woke with her palms aching as though she had truly pressed them to cold rock all night. "It's calling me," she said, and she was frightened, but under the fear was that grave certainty I had loved in another life and had learned to love again in this one. The stones. Something's wrong up there, and the mark knows it, and it's calling me the way it called her. Isn't it? Don't you dare lie to me now, Torin, not now. Yes, I said, I would not lie to her. I had built the whole of this on not lying to her. The veil's thinning. The seal she set is failing with the years. It happens once in a long age, and the moon marks one to mend it. And it marked me. It marked her, I said. You carry the echo of the mark, but you are not Alys, you are not a boundary warden. You've had no teaching, no right, none of what she had, and even with all of it, it cost her, I could not say it. You will not go near those stones, do you hear me? I'll deal with the boundary as it's dealt with. You'll stay in your valley with your bees where it's safe, and when it's done I'll come back down to you and we'll go on. That's how this goes. She looked at me for a long moment, and then she said, gently, the way you say a hard thing to someone you have decided not to hurt. You can't seal it without the mark, can you? That's why she had to be the one. That's why she died, because there was no one else the moon would let close the door. I said nothing, which was answer enough. So who closes it now? She said. You've no warden, you've said it yourself, her line ended. There's only one mark left in all the world, Torin, and it's on my wrist, and it's burning, and it's calling me. And we can both sit here and pretend that isn't true, or we can be braver than that. I will not, I said, and my voice cracked like a boy's. Watch you die at those stones. I did it once. I have been 21 years dying of it. I came down that mountain a dead man walking, and you gave me back my life, and I would sooner tear the seal open with my own hands and let the whole world drown in the dark than stand at those stones and hold you while you go cold in my arms a second time. So no, whatever the moon wants, it does not get to have you twice. Let the world find another way. It was not a kingly thing to say. It was not a wise thing or a good thing. It was the plain, naked selfishness of a man who has lost the one thing and been given it back and will burn down creation before he loses it again. And I am not ashamed of it, because it was true. She came and knelt in front of me the way I had knelt in front of her that first morning, and she took my 2 hands in her 2 hands. The first time she had ever touched me. In all those weeks of courting, I had never once let myself reach for her, and she had never reached for me. And now she did, and the mark on her wrist was hot against my skin, and she said, "Then help me find another way, together. Because I'm not her, Torin, remember? You keep saying it, and it keeps being true. I'm not the girl who went up there alone and gave her whole life at the door because there was no one to stand with her and nothing to lose. I've got you. I've got the whole of your pack that came down a mountain looking for you. She died because she was alone at those stones with only her own life to spend. I won't be alone. That's what's different. That's what the moon couldn't give her and can give me. Maybe the door doesn't have to be paid for in a life. Maybe it only ever was because there was never anyone there to pay for it any other way. I want to tell you I had wisdom to answer her with. I did not. I only knew, hearing her, that she was braver than I was, and that she was right that she was not Sonova. Because Sonova had gone to the stones certain she would die, and Alys was going to the stones certain she would live, and the difference between those two certainties was me, standing behind her and the whole pack behind me, and a love that this time had somewhere to hold on. We went up to the boundary together. I will not spend long on the dark of it, because this is not a tale of the dark, and because I have promised myself I would tell you the warm part true and leave the cold part brief. But you should know what it cost, so you know what the warmth was bought with. The stones stood tall and pale on the high fell where the tree line failed, 12 of them in a broken ring, older than any pack, older than the memory of packs. And the ring was wrong. The air between the stones ran cold and blue and thin, and through the thinness you could see, I will not tell you what you could see. Things that press against the veil, things that Sonova had died to shut out. The seal she had set with her life was a hairline crack, and the crack was widening as we watched, and the cold poured out of it like water out of a broken dam. Alys walked into the ring. My wolves came with her, hers now. They had chosen her the moment she set foot on the fell, the whole pack ringing her round, and I in the center of them, and the moon priest at the edge chanting the old rite he had thought he would never live to speak. She walked to the center stone where the crack ran, and she pressed her 2 palms flat against the cold blue rock, over the failing seal, the way her hands had done in the dream, and the mark on her wrist blazed, not warm now, not hot, but a pure hard silver light that lit the whole ring, and I saw her buckle under it, saw the terrible cold pouring into her the way it had poured into Sonova, saw the light begin to gutter as it draws the life up out of the one who holds it. And I understood, watching, that she had been half wrong. The moon did want a life. It had always wanted a life. That was the price of the door, and it does not go down. But she had been half right too, because I was there. I went to her in the center of the ring, through the cold that near stopped my heart, and I put my hands over her hands on the cold stone, and I opened the bond, the mate bond, the fated bond, the thing between us that had reached across death itself to bring her back around. I opened it as wide as it would go, and I gave. Everything I had. All the years, all the grief, all the long stone I had carried, all the life left in an old king, I poured it down through my hands into hers, into the seal, so that when the door asked for a life it did not have to take only hers. It could take from both of us. Halved between us, it was a price that could be paid and lived past. That is the thing Sonova never had, Not teaching, not right, not power. A second pair of hands. A bond wide enough to share the cost so that the seal drank from two and killed neither. The mark blazed white, the crack sealed. The cold stopped like a slammed door. And Alys and I fell together in the center of the ring, spent to the last drop, gone gray and old and empty as two candles guttered out, but breathing, both breathing. The wolves closed over us, warm and living, and the boundary stones stood cold and quiet and shut. And above us the true moon came out from the clouds, plain and white and merciful. And I lay on the cold fell with the living woman in my arms, and I wept like the old broken fool I am, because I had held that face at these stones once before and let it go cold. And this time, it breathed. "Torin," she said, faint against my chest, "I'm here." "I know," I said, "I know, so am I." "You'll be here," she said, "when I come back." And it was half a question and half the old promise handed back to me, and I said, "I'll be here, wherever you go, always." We did not speak of what came next for a long while. There was healing to do, hers and mine both, the deep gray exhaustion of two people who have poured out nearly all they had. She stayed at Highfell through the mending of it, in a room of her own, tended by Hesta, and I should tell you about Hesta because it matters. The old woman came to Alys' sick room the first day, and she stood in the doorway a long time, and then she came and sat by the bed, and she did not say son of his name. She took Alys' hand, the marked wrist, and she said, "I did you a great wrong in your market, girl. I called you by a name that isn't yours because I was old and full of grief, and I wanted a dead woman back so badly I couldn't see the living one in front of me. You're not her. I know it now. She's asked me, you understand, my son of a, she asked me to look after her king, and I've done it poorly, 21 years of doing it poorly. But you're not her, and I'll not do you the wrong of loving you for her sake. I'll do you the honor of learning to love you for your own if you'll let a stupid old woman try. Alys." And she said the name, Alys, plain and warm and whole, and Alys wept. And the two of them sat there a long time. And after that Hesta called her Alys always, with love, and never once slipped, and that was its own kind of mending. When Alys was well enough to walk the high wood, I knew the time had come, and I dreaded it, because everything until now had been need and danger and the boundary, and none of it counted for the thing I wanted to ask. She had chosen to go to the stones. She had not chosen me. A woman will do a brave thing at a broken door with a man and owe him nothing after but thanks. I would not mistake gratitude for love, nor a shared danger for a chosen life. I had learned too well what it costs to take a woman as a thing returned to you instead of a woman who has chosen. So I took her one gold late autumn morning back down to the valley, to her own cottage, her own hives, her own life at the wood's edge. I would not ask her at Highfell in my hall on my ground, where the weight of the pack and the crown and the dead might lean on her answer. I asked her in her own dooryard among her own bees, where she was only herself and owed nothing to anyone. I knelt in the grass the way I had that first true morning. And I said, "I'll not court you as a Luna come back. You're not her, and I've buried her at last, and I'll not raise her again to stand in your place. I court you as Alys, who keeps bees, who is braver than her king at the stones, whom I have come to love, not for a face, though God knows it's the face I've grieved, but for the woman under it who is nothing like the one I lost, and everything I never knew I could be given twice. I'm an old man. I'm a king, and it's a hard, cold life and a high, cold hall, and you've a valley you love and a life you built with your own two hands, and I'll not pretend the one is a fair trade for the other. I've nothing to offer you that you need. You saved my life and asked nothing. I'll ask nothing either if that's your answer. I'll go and you'll keep your bees, and I'll count myself blessed past my deserving only to have known you. But if you'll have me, if you'll come up the mountain and be my Luna and my wife, and the queen of a cold hall that would grow warm the day you walked into it, then I am yours wholly, for whatever's left of my life, and I'll spend every day of it grateful." She was quiet. She looked down at me kneeling in her grass, and I saw the crease come at the left corner of her mouth, the fraction of a heartbeat before, so that I knew before she spoke that whatever was coming, it was not a no, and even so I hardly dared breathe. "I have to ask you a thing," she said, "and you have to tell me true. You've never once lied to me, and if you lie to me now, I'll know it, and it'll be the end. Did you come for me?" She pressed her marked wrist against her heart. "Or did you come for her? All of it, the market, the honey, the courting, this. Was it me you wanted, or was it her, and I was only the door you got to reach her through?" It was the hardest question a woman ever asked me, and I did not have to search for the answer, because I had already faced it in the gray nights at the inn a season past, and I knew it to the bone. I came for her, I said. That first morning in the market, God forgive me, I came for her. I saw a dead woman's face, and 21 years of grief stood up in me, and I could not stop myself from being near it. If you'd been her, only her, come back, I'd have taken you up the mountain that first day and never let you go, and it would have been a cruelty, and I didn't know it yet. I drew a breath. But she died in the market, Alys, when you knocked the jars off the plank and stood shaking and said, "That is not my name." The last of my son of a died right there, and I let her, and I grieved her clean, and I buried her for good. It's you I've been courting since, you I mended hives for, you I love. If some other woman wore her face tomorrow, I'd not cross the road for it, because it was never the face. I know that now it was you, the one who keeps bees and scolds a king, and walked into the ring braver than I've ever been. Son of a, I laid to rest. It's Alys I want. And if you send me off this morning, I'll grieve you the rest of my days, but I'll grieve you, Alys, not her. Never her again. She looked at me a long moment, and the tears came, but she was smiling through them, that slow, certain smile with the crease before it. Then get up off my grass, she said, unsteady. You ridiculous old king, before you fright my bees. And she reached down and took my hands and drew me up, and she was laughing and crying both, and she said, I'm not your son of a, I'll never be her. I keep my own name and my own bees, and half the year we'll spend down here in my valley, or I'll go mad in that cold hall of yours, and you'll learn to love the linden bloom, or I'll know the reason why. Those are my terms, and I'll not soften them. Done, I said, all of it done. Then yes, she said, freely, not because the moon marked me, and not because I owe you my life, and not because I've a dead woman's face. Because I know you now, Torin, and it's you I choose of my own free will with my own free heart. Yes, freely, yes. And she said my name, and I gathered her up in my arms in her own dooryard among her own bees with the last of the linden gold dropping around us, and the wolves came out of the wood to ring us round, and for the first time in 21 years I was not a man carrying a stone. I had set it down. I had been given, past all deserving and all belief, a second morning. She keeps her bees still. Half the year we're at Highfell, and the cold hall did grow warm the day she walked into it, exactly as I said it would, though I never told her I'd meant it as more than a courting flattery. She rules the pack beside me with the plain, grave sense of a woman who spent her life keeping order among 100,000 bees and finds wolves easier by half. Hesta calls her Alys always, with a love that has nothing of the dead in it, and the two of them are thick as thieves, and I am glad past saying to see the old woman's grief laid down at last alongside my own. And half the year we're down in Linden Vale, in the cottage at the wood's edge, because she'll not leave the bees to a hired hand through the linden bloom. And I've learned, she saw to it, to love the 2 gold drowsy weeks when the whole vale hums and the light goes thick as the honey itself. The mark on her wrist is quiet now. It stays warm, but only warm and only near me, which she says is the only warning she needs and the only one she wants. The boundary stands shut on the high fell, sealed by 2 lives that neither of them had to end, and the moon priest says it will hold an age. And after that it will be someone else's reckoning, and we do not speak of it, because we spent our whole allowance of the dark up there in one night, and I mean the rest to be light. Some evenings at Highfell, she sets a jar of her own honey on the table between us, and eats it a spoon at a time in the firelight, and does not know, I've never told her, that I did the same thing alone in a low in a season before I ever dared speak to her, when a spoon of her honey in the dark was the whole of what I let myself have of her. I watch her do it, and I think, I made a promise once at a cold blue door to a woman who was dying in my arms. Wherever you go, I said. I'll be here. When you come back, I'll be here. I did not know I was making a promise the moon would keep. I did not know that anyone was listening on the far side of the dark, or that a promise could be a rope thrown across death itself, or that the one who came back along it would not be the one I lost, but someone new and whole and better, someone I had to earn instead of merely mourn. But I kept it. That's the thing I hold to on the gold evenings, watching her eat honey by the fire. She went where I could not follow, and she came back around by a long, strange road with a new name and a new face that was somehow the old one, and when she came back, I was here. I will always be here. That is the whole of what an old king has to give, and it turned out in the end to be enough.